Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 9. We've still got some Champions League and Europa League games this week, so just bear in mind that we could have some more injuries and problems that arise over the next few days. But I'll be covering the best 15-man squad on the wildcard chip, and in terms of the best time to use it, it is team dependent, but I would be looking at Game Weeks 12, 14, 16, and 18, with Game Week 12 being my preference as it's right around the corner, and there are some nice fixture swings. It's not too awkward with certain teams you might want to pile up on. They will all have good fixtures in Game Week 12, so timing is very important on the wildcard, and ultimately, you might have a very good squad that doesn't need the chip to be activated even up until Game Week 14 or later on in the season. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this video to 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers. Thank you to all subscribers, by the way, because we hit 29k on Tuesday during the UCL Fantasy deadline stream, and we're looking to get to 30k by the end of the year. Also check out the links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. As highlighted in the last Best Wildcard Team podcast, I would go for Onana because Man United have a good run of fixtures. He is still the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game, and I know there are some good alternatives like Robert Sanchez, Sales, and a few others I'll discuss very soon, but I think Onana at this price point offers tremendous value, and David Raya is still a great choice in the long term. But if I'm wildcarding right now, with Arsenal facing Liverpool, Chelsea and Newcastle next, and with their recent struggles, with the lack of creativity, they're also missing Saliba in Game Week 9, I think it's probably best to avoid David Raya at this moment in time, but I think in a couple of game weeks, he would easily enter the thinking once again for a best wildcard team. So I think Onana is a very good choice, but you might want to cover Man United defensively with Mesraoui instead, who's even cheaper at 4.6 million, but he does pick up quite a few injuries. Of course, the recent problem is due to heart issues, and hopefully he is all good now. But Onana, for me, is my favourite goalkeeper in Game Week 9 due to the saves potential, the bonus points, and the great fixtures coming up. My second goalkeeper would be Fabianski, just a 4 million choice to really be a backup, a facilitator, and enabler. I'm not a big fan of going for two 4.5 million goalkeepers and rotating them because sometimes football is full of surprises and it's not played on paper, so the fixtures don't mean too much in the grand scheme of things. But I think going for this is more than enough for your goalkeeper pairing. You're not spending too much money in this position, and you can spend as much money as possible in the outfield positions, which is the most important in FPL. The first defender will be Rico Lewis, who is still quite cheap in the grand scheme of things. Now, Kyle Walker did miss training ahead of Man City's Champions League game against Sparta Prague at home, so Rico Lewis has a great chance of playing in that particular match. Whether he starts or not is a different question, but we'll wait and see. And how will that impact his minutes over the weekend? Because I think he's going to be benched at some stage in FPL in the next couple of game weeks, and it could be in Game Week 9 against Southampton at home, which is one of the best fixtures Man City will have all season. I could see a clean sheet, a lot of goals being scored, and Rico Lewis can get a clean sheet if he starts, also an assist, and some bonus points potentially. So let's be a bit careful with this pick. If you do go for Rico Lewis, try to ensure you've got that defensive depth necessary to cover for him, just in case he misses out entirely. But there is also the possibility of him coming on as a substitute for a one-pointer, which is far from ideal, but so far this season that hasn't really been the case too often, and there's been one occasion against Arsenal where Lewis didn't play a single minute, and that's where your fourth or fifth defenders could really come into play. The second option will be Gabriel. I still have faith in the Arsenal defence long-term, and they've kept 3 clean sheets in the Champions League this season, out of 3 matches in that 1-0 win over Shakhtar Donetsk. They had a good first half, but I have to say the last 45 minutes were terrible, and Arsenal were very toothless and vulnerable, very shaky with their passing, and they left themselves exposed, and they easily could have actually conceded in that game. But they've got Raya between the sticks, who made a great save. Gabriel made several big blocks, and in the Premier League, Arsenal have been very solid defensively when they've had 11 men. The problem is they've got 3 red cards in 8 matches, and that's where they've conceded the bulk of their goals and chances in those games against Brighton, Man City, and Bournemouth. If it's a question of going for David Raya in goal or Gabriel, I would lean towards Gabriel despite the heftier price tag because of the goal potential from set pieces, which hasn't really been seen in recent weeks, but I still think Gabriel is a menace and he will get some goals throughout the season. He might even do so in some of these tougher games against Liverpool, Chelsea and Newcastle. He's the type of player you never really want to bench for that particular reason. It's a bit similar to Trent Alexander-Arnold, even with his tough away game against Arsenal over the weekend. So let's now go to the other defenders, and this is where things get very interesting, but I am going for 3 budget options here. Aina will be one of them, but it's worth noting that Nottingham Forest's fixtures do turn for the worse very soon, and that's why I haven't gone for Sells in goal, but you could easily go for that sort of pick, and you might be wondering, why is Aina okay and not Sells? I'm not even saying Sells is bad, by the way, just to make that very clear, but I think Aina is better because he's a 4th or 5th defender to rotate with the other options, so when his fixtures get tough, you can bench him. But it is worth mentioning he did keep a clean sheet at Anfield of all places, and Forest were very solid defensively away to Stamford Bridge as well in their 1-1 draw. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have Aina in these really tough games coming up. But Arsenal and Man City away very soon doesn't look great, and I can't see Nottingham Forest keeping a clean sheet. But he may fall differently, as they've only conceded 6 goals this season. They've got the second best record, only behind Liverpool in that regard. In terms of expected goals conceded, there has been a slight overperformance as they're 8th in the Premier League table for that metric, but ultimately Nottingham Forest have a good defence, probably the best outside the top 6 alongside Brighton, so I do think someone like Aina or Milenkovic is a great choice. Even Murillo is decent. He got a few bonus points against Crystal Palace in their 1-0 victory, and Sells and goal remains an excellent choice at 4.5 million. Next up will be 8 Nuri, who's only 4.4, but Wolves have been terrible this season. They're bottom of the Premier League table. They've had an awful start to the season in terms of their fixtures, and now they've got a sea of green on the fixture difficulty rating. It is Brighton away next, so you might want to bench 8 Nuri for this particular match, as I'll show you later on in the lineup section. But I think 8 Nuri is a great choice to have in place for fixtures like Southampton at home coming up very soon. He can score goals, get a few assists, and bonus points. He is fairly injury prone though, so watch out for that and ensure you've got that defensive depth just in case, because with Rico Lewis and 8 Nuri, it might not be the safest with those particular picks, but they've got low ownership, especially in the case of 8 Nuri with around 2% ownership, and I think he can get a lot of returns in the next couple of weeks. And finally, I'm going to tackle the fixtures once again and go for Mykolenko, who got 7 points in Game Week 8, one of the heroes of my own setup, and he faces Fulham at home next, which isn't the easiest, but Everton could win this game. Maybe they'll keep a clean sheet, although it's quite unlikely on paper, and their fixtures until Game Week 14 in early December are fantastic, and I like the way this defensive 5 rotates with each other with their fixtures, attacking potential, clean sheets, and I just think it offers a lot of value. You've got players at different price points. Gabriel is your only premium here. The rest are essentially mid-price to budget defenders, and Mykolenko is only 4.3 million. Let me know down in the comment section below which other defenders you'd consider. Maybe Gvardiol, Pedro Porro, Trent Alexander-Arnold remains an excellent choice, and you've got other options at a similar price tag like Mazraoui at 4.6 million. Ever since he scored 4 goals against Brighton in the first half, Palmer has been a bit quiet on the FPL front. He has returned since then, but the blank against Liverpool was a bit disappointing, but also expected, to be fair. But the next few fixtures aren't as tough as they may seem, with Newcastle and Man United up next. I could see Palmer getting one big return in one of those matches. He's a great captaincy shout for Game Week 9 as a result. And then Arsenal at home is probably the toughest game Chelsea have for a long time, but Arsenal have their own issues, and Chelsea could definitely score 1 or 2 goals against the Gunners based on recent form. But let's see if things change from now until that particular matchup in a couple of weeks' time. But Cole Palmer is still one of the best FPL options in the game. I'd highly recommend him. If you've got Bukayo Saka, for example, and you're looking to sell, I'd rather go to Cole Palmer than Heung-min Son. But speaking of which, I would go for him at the moment, and having Palmer and Son will be a nice sort of differential. Not many people will have this specific duo, and Son's ownership is still very low. It's around 7% at the time of this recording. He is a short-term punt though, and from Game Week 12 and beyond, I'd much rather have Saka in this setup. He's far more consistent, and Arsenal are still a better team, but it has to be said that Heung-min Son, with the next 3 games coming up, could really do well. Ipswich Town at home looks fantastic, and I think he could be targeted for the captaincy if you're looking to go against Erling Haaland in specific game weeks such as that. And you might even want to go about Erling Haaland in the first place, which I'll show you as well with another draft later on. So I like these 2 midfielders. They are obviously very expensive, of course, and there is no Mohamed Salah with this 15-man squad, but you could still go for him despite facing Arsenal away in Game Week 9. But the third midfielder will be Mbeumo. I can't remember the last time I've made a wildcard video without him. He's been so consistent this season. He did blank against Man United, which is a bit surprising, but I think you could maybe give him a pass due to his consistency, the underlying stats. He's on penalties, and the fixtures look great now for Brentford for the next 5 game weeks. So I do like this midfield complexion and structure. Mbeumo is going to be the best player at this price and below. I still like Jared Bowen, and there are other options like Brennan Johnson, Maddison, Luis Diaz, and Jota, but I think Mbeumo is more nailed on than the vast majority of them. Of course, Jared Bowen would be in that same bracket of playing so many minutes, and his starting berth will never be in question. So Bryan Mbeumo for me, I can't recommend him highly enough. If you don't have him already, there is still a great opportunity for you to buy him and enjoy his FPL returns. But let's now complete this midfield, and next up is someone I haven't covered all season really in these best wildcard teams, and that's going to be Alejandro Garnacho, who got 10 points against Brentford, and playing on the left, he looks far more dangerous than he does on the right. He can cut inside, and he was a constant menace to Brentford. He scored a goal, got maximum bonus points, and I think he's got a few more of those double-digit hauls coming along very soon, and United's fixtures look excellent. Even West Ham away, you might not want to bench him considering West Ham's defensive woes in the last couple of weeks, and they've really struggled under Lopetegui. So as a bit of a differential, I think Garnacho could be a great choice, and I would rank him higher than Rashford, who has been impressive recently as well, and Bruno Fernandes, who has great underlying stats, but hasn't converted that into many assists or goals this season, although the flick for the second goal was exceptional by Bruno Fernandes. Garnacho is my favourite United asset alongside Onana. You've also got Mazraoui to think about, but I definitely wouldn't double up on Man United defensively. And finally, I'm going for a budget midfielder. He is still the best for me considering the fixtures, and that's going to be McNeil, who got an assist in the 2-0 win against Ipswich Town. But you do have alternatives like Smith Rowe, Semenyo, Morgan Rogers is still really good, but Aston Villa's fixtures turn for the worse very soon, and I think McNeil has a higher ceiling over the next 5 game weeks. So maybe by game week 14 and beyond, you'd look at somebody else at this specific price tag, but at the moment, I think McNeil is the best budget midfielder in the game. It's rare to see Erling Haaland blank, let alone 3 times in a row. That's the first time that's happened in FPL throughout his career, and he's got Southampton at home next. Surely he's going to haul big, and I could see him getting 2 or 3 goals very easily, but football is full of surprises, and if he somehow blanks against Southampton, I could see many people looking to sell him in Game Week 10, even if they wildcard him in Game Week 9, or buy him right now, which I don't think many people will be looking to do necessarily, since most people have him already. But Erling Haaland for me is a triple captaincy choice against Southampton. Even last week, I liked the Wolves fixture away, but I always preferred Southampton at home. The only concern would be the minutes with a Champions League game in between, and then you got Tottenham a few days later in the Carabao Cup, and then more tough games coming up in the Premier League. But I think Erling Haaland is definitely worth keeping on the wildcard in Game Week 9. But I think from Game Week 10 onwards, you could easily build a structure without Erling Haaland and spreading the funds, going for Salah and Trent alongside Son and Palmer. Maybe by that stage you'd want Saka, and of course Ollie Watkins is still going very strong. The second forward though would be Wissa, a budget option with very low ownership. He's only 5.9 million now, and before his injury, he was the second highest scoring forward in the game, only behind Erling Haaland, and Ipswich Town at home next looks incredible. He made a brief cameo against Man United upon his return. There is no guarantee he's going to start in Game Week 9, but I personally think he will, and I think it's worth a punt and going for this double up offensively with Brentford in Mbeumo and Wissa. That's a great duo that could work wonders for you over the next 5 to 6 game weeks with their great fixtures. And finally, I'm going for another Wolves asset in Cunha, but there's also Strand Larsen who scored against Man City. You might want to go for him, but I like Cunha's bonus points potential. He can get the odd assist, although he hasn't got one so far this season. The underlying stats for his creativity are quite good, with 11 key passes and 4 big chance created. And I do like this 50-man squad overall, but you might argue a double up in Wolves seems excessive considering their start to the season, but their upcoming fixtures could see a turn in fortunes for them, and it wouldn't surprise me if they got a few victories on board. Before I delve into the starting 11 and captaincy, let's have a look at Drafthound. There is a link in the description below. I'd highly encourage you to check it out. For as little as £2 per week, you gain access to all of the tools, such as the player rankings, which is my personal favourite, and I've toggled it to the next 3 game weeks overall, and Haaland is top, with Palmer, Salah, Mbeumo, and Gvardiol in the top 5. Son, Saka, Watkins, Kulusevski, and Johnson complete the top 10, but let's see if Saka is available, because Arteta's comments after the Shakhtar Donetsk win didn't look promising whatsoever, but it's very difficult to trust Arteta when it comes to injury updates, and I've said this all along, so take what he says with a pinch of salt, and let me know what you would change with the wildcard team I discussed. But towards the very end, I'm going to show you alternatives and a non-Haaland draft, which might seem stronger on paper, maybe not for Game Week 9 specifically, but in the long term, it might score even more points than the best wildcard team I showed you. If you're wildcarding in Game Week 9 and want to go for Haaland, my starting 11 would be Onana in goal, a back three of Gabriel, Lewis and Aina, a midfield 5 of Palmer, Mbeumo, Son, McNeil and Garnacho, with Haaland and Wissa up front. The bench is quite strong though, with Fabianski, Cunha, Mikalenko and Nuri, and you will have some benching headaches in the long term with this setup, so you might want to downgrade a certain player, maybe your 5th midfielder or 3rd forward, and that gives you more money to spend in other areas. For example, if you downgrade Cunha to Ross Stewart or a budget striker around 4.5 million, you could then upgrade one of your defenders to Trent Alexander-Arnold or possibly Gvardiol if you wish. So there's a few things you could do depending on your preferences, and I'd encourage you to leave your thoughts as always down in the comment section and also in the Discord server. The expected points is 56.7 with this particular team, and that's because Wissa's expected points is exactly 0. If I put someone like Cunha in the starting 11, this would increase to 59.4. I would captain Haaland if you go for him, and Palmer would be the vice. Other options would include Mbeumo. I really like him against Ipswich Town at home, and you might want to start Mikalenko over Gabriel this week, and I'll talk about that dilemma in my own team selection because I'm actually having second thoughts about starting Gabriel. Despite Arsenal being one of the best teams in the world, I do think their current struggles are definitely a big issue, and I think Liverpool could take advantage and get the victory, especially if Saka doesn't feature in that game. So that will be the best wildcard team with Erling Haaland, but let's now discuss a draft without the Norwegian robot. Don't get me wrong, I really like Sells as a 4-point family and goalkeeper, and you can go for him, but I prefer Pickford because of Everton's superior fixtures, and I think Nottingham Forest won't keep as many clean sheets in the upcoming month. I may be wrong about that, and I still think they offer good value. You can go for Aina or Milenkovic as your 4th or 5th defender, and Sells will still be a good option, but on the wildcard, I will look elsewhere. Even David Raya would be a preference for me, Jordan Pickford, Onana, and maybe Robert Sanchez once Chelsea's fixtures turn for the better in Game Week 12. But the back three could be Trent Alexander-Arnold, Lewis, and Van den Berg. I don't really trust Brentford defensively, but Greaves is currently injured for the next month, and I'm not too fond of a Colley or Wout Faes from Leicester City, but there are plenty of 4 million defenders to choose from. I'm going for a midfield 5 of Palmer, Salah, Foden, Mbeumo, and McNeil, with Watkins and Chris Wood up front, and the bench includes Fabianski or any 4 million goalkeeper of your choice, Raul Jimenez, Mazraoui, and Nuri. More benching dilemmas with this setup as well, and you kind of are thinking of how to spread the funds without Erling Haaland. I've got 0.6 million left in the bank with this 50-man squad, and there are so many forwards to choose from. Even Delap is still a good option for me. Jimmy Vardy is decent, but I probably wouldn't go for him on the wildcard, and if anything, I might be looking to sell him to the likes of Watkins, Chris Wood, Jimenez, and the other forwards I discussed earlier, like Wissa and Cunha, but we are stacked in this position. I still think Solanke is decent for the next 3 game weeks, and Kai Havertz long-term is a great choice, but I wouldn't go for him at this moment in time. But essentially, those are the best wildcard teams depending on your strategy. Do you go with Haaland or without him? And Game Week 9 is an awkward point to wildcard, and it gives you decisions like this to make because Erling Haaland faces Southampton at home where he could easily score another hat-trick. Now, the captaincy would be difficult in Game Week 9 without him, but I think Palmer and Mbeumo would suffice, and even a differential like Phil Foden could work very well. And don't discount Ollie Watkins at home to Bournemouth either. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this podcast to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review if you haven't already, and follow me on Spotify as well. It would be greatly appreciated. As always, I'll see you very soon for more FPL and news fantasy content, and I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 9.